Hi students, today we're going to be talking about persuasive writing, and this video lecture is meant to be short and to the point because the best way for you to learn about persuasive writing is to practice it on your own. So the majority of your time in this lecture series will be writing and fixing poor examples and not listening to me talk with you about writing. So let's get started on the lecture portion, and then you will have a chance to practice some of these techniques on your own. So the thing about persuasive writing is that it's not just about persuasive writing. There are many different elements, and we're going to go over those today. We're going to talk about things like positive writing, concise writing, and goodwill general openings, and we're going to go over each of those individually. So to start, positive writing, people respond if you focus on the positive rather than the negative, and that quote kind of explains that here. So that's our goal, to explain the positive and not the negative. Ways to do this: first of all, present good news directly and bad news indirectly. What does that mean? Well, if a job says that you need Photoshop experience and you have Photoshop experience, that's good news. So you would say, I have Photoshop experience. That's a direct statement. If they say you need Illustrator experience and you don't have Adobe Illustrator experience, you want to say that indirectly. So you might say, Illustrator wasn't something that we used at the companies I've worked with in the past. However, I do have Photoshop experience. So you're saying that bad news indirectly, but saying the good news directly. And I can answer more questions about that when we start with examples. The sandwich method, that's really easy to remember. You just sandwich the bad news in between good news. So good news, then the bad news, and then more good news. So sandwich in between good news. Stress what something is rather than what it is not. That's really important. And emphasize what the product or firm can do, or in a cover letter, what you can do rather than what it cannot. We can apply this positive writing knowledge to letters in general. For example, if you were a company that messed something up and you wanted to write a letter to your customers, you would never want to start that letter off with an apology or an explanation of what happened. Always start off with action that's going to tell them how you're going to fix it first. And that's really putting the reader first and drawing them into the letter, being positive before you are negative and apologize. You want to include that apology, but start off with that positive news about the action you're going to take. And then obviously try to avoid any negative words that convey something that's unpleasant. Try to avoid saying things like problem, bad, things like that that are just plain negative. And so right off the bat here in our example, we're going to see some of those negative words that I was talking about. So let's read the example. The class I had to take was not the typical easy biology class that most students experienced. We complete real lab work and I learned actual lessons rather than focusing on theories and background information. And so this does not use a lot of positive words. It does not tell you what something is. It doesn't focus on the positive. It focuses on the negative. Instead of explaining what this biology class meant to this student, saying that they completed real lab work, talking about what those projects are, they focus on stating that it wasn't a typical easy biology class. This is an extremely negative statement. Because it's so negative, it's hard for the writer to be persuasive. We're not persuaded that this is a student who is smart and doing a great job in biology. Instead, we're focusing on the negative and wondering why he decided to write his experience in this way. So I know we've been talking about concise writing all semester, and you may wonder how it fits in with persuasive writing. Well, this quote explains that the goal of concise writing is to use the most effective words, because concise writing doesn't always have the fewest words, but always uses the strongest ones. The strongest, more effective words are going to be a lot more persuasive, so they're going to help you with your cover letter. I won't go into too much detail here since I know we've been talking about this again all semester, but remember, things that help are to read your work out loud to yourself. Read each sentence individually. Don't just focus on an entire paragraph and skim through it looking for typos. Focus on improving each sentence. And then watch out for prepositional phrases, long clauses, and those that's or whiches that are unnecessary. Some things to remember to avoid. Do not begin a sentence with there is or there are, since those are often unnecessary phrases that you can just delete, and then you can rewrite that sentence to be more direct and often more persuasive. Long sentences are often the result of a bunch of ideas being joined together. Try to break apart those long sentences, use 2 shorter sentences, sometimes 3 or 4 shorter sentences. Anytime you see something that's going on for a long time, you can most likely break those ideas up, and then they will be much more persuasive. Finally, in everything you do for this class, fluffy writing should be avoided. You can be more direct and more persuasive. So here's an example. Jazz and Such, which was founded in 1871, is the premier all-jazz music store in the Raleigh area. It is too long, it's not direct enough, and it's not persuasive. Instead, try, the premier all-jazz music store in Raleigh is Jazz and Such, or since 1871, Jazz and Such has been the premier all-jazz music store. Making it shorter makes it simpler and more persuasive. Goodwill general openings are so important, and that's why we're talking about them again. An open general statement can keep your document from starting off with things like my goal or I'm going to. So in your cover letter, instead of starting off with my goal is to get a position doing this, you can talk generally about your passion for the field or your knowledge and experience in the area. This is more exciting to the reader. Introducing this general concept in the beginning helps to bring the reader into the document. It's almost like you're including them in your ideas. Instead of starting off with, I'm going to, or my goal, which is very you-centered, you're talking about a general concept, hopefully one that they can relate to, so that they feel like they're being brought into this document and included in the subject. That makes it much more persuasive overall. So here's an example of a poor opening. It says, I am excited to talk with you about my experiences and about why I would be the best and only candidate for this administrative assistant position. I saw your job opening on EPAC and I am submitting my resume so that you will please consider me for this position. I. There is no general opening here to make the reader feel like they're being included at all. It's all about the writer, and it's kind of boring. So instead, this person could start off by saying, in the past, some of my favorite job positions have been ones where I can help an office stay organized and efficient. What a more exciting opening. With that opening, I'm picturing you at my office helping to make everything more organized and efficient. That's much better than the opening we have here, which makes me picture nothing but the letter I. So we've talked about some concepts that can help you with persuasive writing, but why are we talking about this when we're supposed to be focusing on cover letters especially? Well, persuasive writing is an attempt on your part to convince an audience to adopt your point of view or to take action. And with your cover letter, you're asking them to adopt the view that you're awesome and to take action in calling you for an interview. So it's very important. There are some things about persuasive writing that can help that I'd like to mention here. First of all, remember that the way you present your ideas is as important as the ideas themselves. So in all of these examples, we've been presenting ideas in the wrong way. How you present these ideas is so important. So it's not just about the experience you have. That's not what's going to get you an interview. It's about how you explain that experience, how you convey your desire to get this position to the reader. You must support all of your appeals with logic and with a sound presentation of facts, statistics, and examples. So in your cover letter, you can't just describe your experiences and expect the reader to connect the dots. You need to present facts about what you've done, statistics or examples about your experience that help them see why you're a good fit. Consider their possible questions that they might have and try to answer them within your letter. That'll make them feel like you're thinking about them. And remember formatting. The design you use is almost just as important as the information you have. Now you're going to find instructions for this week's forum post where you always find them within the forum. There's instructions for what to do, but I just want to mention ahead of time so that you know what to expect. You're going to be correcting examples based on the knowledge you've learned through this lecture. And so to make that a little easier and to encourage you to have longer posts and longer conversations, I divided you into groups. So you're not going to be responding to the whole class. You're only going to be responding to 4 or 5 people. And hopefully that'll make it easier for you to have conversations about these examples and what you did to fix the problems within the examples. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm really looking forward to seeing your forum responses this week. Remember, if you have any questions about this week's assignments, upcoming assignments, or the content of this lecture, send me an email and let me know.